Average wage growth in the UK, some good news, folks, rose above inflation for the first time in 2 years in August. Latest figures from the Office for National Statistics said this morning. While it's expected that it will ease the pressure on many families during the cost of living crisis, some economists are worried that the boost in household spending power will push up prices again. We're into that whole joy of inflationary pressure. With me right now to discuss this is Justin Urquhart-Stewart. He's economist and he's chairman of the Regionally Investment Platform. Good afternoon to you, Justin. I didn't know that you or I existed in the afternoon.
So normally I'm nocturnal.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, I want to talk to you also about where we are in taxes as well.
Yeah.
This average pay growth, look, I mean, you know, it's not, you know, it's not exactly huge, is it? We're looking at annual rate of 7.8% between June and August, which in a normal year would be huge, but not when we've seen the sort of rates of inflation we've seen lately. But it is now above where, well, the latest rate of inflation for the year to August was 6.7%. So should everyone be feeling better off now?
It's marginal, but the trouble with this is you've got different types of inflation. You've got inflation, prices going up. You've then got deflation, prices going down. The figures we've got at the moment is called disinflation. Actually, it's still going up, but not as fast as it was last year. So actually, are you feeling any better? No, goods are still going to get more expensive. So I'm afraid we're moving in the right way, in the right direction, but it's not going to make us feel particularly enthusiastic to go out and spend. But what we won't have, I don't think, is any more interest rate rises unless the Bank of England have really lost their marbles. It's not necessary.
Well, you and I have been worried for quite some time they've lost their marbles and that those interest rate rises went on much longer than many experts. I mean, no offence, such as we're trusting economic experts anymore after quantitative easing, etc. But long after most people said that it should have stopped.
Yeah, I mean, the structure should now be, are you going to get tax cuts? Well, the figures show us that we've seen so far, the answer is no, that's very unlikely. That's not an excuse not to do anything. What the government can do, and Mr. Hunt is being slightly more imaginative, is actually give incentives for companies and individuals to invest. There are already incentives there, but now make it bigger so that you're actually getting enterprise investment schemes operating not just in the UK, on a general basis, but make it regional so people can invest in local businesses, not as charity, because it's good investment and they need capital. The banks still aren't working properly, so the government can find alternative ways of encouraging more money into the system. If you've got more money, people will start getting more confidence, they go out and spend, they spend, the government earns more tax, and therefore actually we're better off. The problem we've got is actually the cost of this debt. We've mentioned before that annually it's normally about 50 billion a year. I
love the way you said that sort of, it's about a tenner. 50. Okay, that is. Don't we spend more? Don't we spend more servicing our interest rates than the debt than we spend on education in this country, which kind of tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's going to come out about 115 billion. Now, that's the sort of finger in the air, but it probably won't be far off that. The only other area which has actually got more expenditure than that is, of course, the NHS. And so this is ridiculous that our debt now, and as interest rates have gone up, and some idiot decided to actually put some of our debt into index-linked stocks. So on that basis, good heavens, as inflation went up, we ended up paying more for it. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. But actually what you're going to see now is the room for it's going to change the attitude. It's improving a little bit, but be wary of green shoots. They often turn out to be advanced mould.
Oh, God, I mean, I thought we talked to you to have a little bit of cheer today, Justin. You made me more miserable. Of course, we still remember, don't we, the Bank of England governor a year or two ago saying at a select committee hearing, well, the thing is, you know, people shouldn't be asking for pay rises while inflation's sky high. People can't afford their energy bills and shops. And as we know, for the lowest income people, it was the more of their money goes on things like food and heating and the rent. They were actually seeing much bigger increases than even the average households, certainly richer households. And he was saying you shouldn't ask for an inflation-busting wage rise because that will just lead to more inflation, and everyone should, you know, not do that. And then it was asked, well, how much are you earning? And he couldn't actually remember. He didn't know exactly how much he earned, but it was well over £500,000 a year. So he probably wasn't concerned about putting the heating on in his house last winter, as most people were, and doesn't worry about the bill when he gets to the till in the supermarket. But this is it. There is that risk, isn't there, that it goes up. But even with people, and it'll be average, these wage increases, even the people who have had a good wage increase, busting inflation, they will still be having the drag of the last couple of years on top of that. Barely anyone is getting a wage inflation that covers all of that rise.
Yeah, anyone who's got a mortgage, a particular tracker mortgage, or having to renew, will notice the pain. That has not got any better, I'm afraid. Well, marginally they've come down a little bit, but they're still going to be extremely expensive for people. Now, also add to this the concern we've got out of not just the war in Ukraine, but the other issues, of course, with Israel as well. And that all adds to not the global economy stopping, but it loses confidence. Now, here is the issue we must all remember. The global economy is still growing. Yes, there's some real threats to it, and not just inflation, but of course those geopolitical issues as well. What can we do as individuals? Well, first of all, just make sure, try and get through this winter by doing things which is quite straightforward, more lagging. Control your heating much more. That's all very well and patronising for me to say so, but that's probably all you can do.
Put a jumper on, as we're always told. That's what my husband says to me, to be fair, but he's northern and I'm southern. We've got about a 5 degrees Celsius difference in the temperature that we think is the appropriate temperature to watch telly in, but there we are. Can I ask you about the Institute of Fiscal Studies, their report out today, showing that the number of people paying higher rate income tax is going to double to nearly 9 million people in this country under the government's, they say, stealth tax rate worth £52 billion. They found that 8.9 million people will be subject to that higher rate. So that's the 40% tax rate. That's 1 in 6 of the adult population. And they said it's effectively a huge tax rise, equivalent to adding 6p per pound to both the basic and higher rates of income tax, or increasing the main rate of VAT from 20% up to 26%. Now, 45 is the top rate, but the higher rate is paid by a lot more. I mean, that's just very few people pay that. But a lot more people pay the 40%. But even the 40% rate, that was originally brought in for the, you lived in a mansion if you were paying 40%. Now we're talking about teachers paying this.
Yep.
Police officers. This fiscal drag is extraordinary.
The whole idea was it's supposed to be a top level of tax. And so it was for those people who were not stinking rich, but had worked their way through the system and now earning more. But unfortunately now getting, as you're just saying there, people like tube drivers, they're now high rate taxpayers. Where did this all come from? Our tax system is out of date and needs to be made simpler and more understandable. And if you believe it, actually, they're making sure people can actually use the tax system to properly make sure that the government's funding itself. It seemed to be fair. And even, so the filthy rich, well, I'm afraid there's not much you can do about that, but you can encourage the glorious British middle class to be able to still spend, still invest. And that comes from leadership from your politicians. Any around? I haven't seen any.
Well, good luck with that. Justin Urquhart-Stewart, as long as he earns enough to keep himself in red braces, that's what matters. Thank you so much, Justin Urquhart-Stewart. Always great to get your thoughts on that.